Well, President Bola Tinubu has tasked the new 4 to 5 ministers to meet the expectations of Nigerians for a renewed socio-economic development. The president stated this after the inauguration of the ministers at the State House Banquet Hall in Abuja. President Tinubu says the administration comes at a time when the country needed renewal and reforms in all ramifications. He says the new ministers reflect the different diversities of the country and have been chosen for their track record of success and achievements in their various fields of endeavors.
With the inauguration of ministers today, we are about to accelerate our governing efforts, move forward, realizing our best aspiration for Nigeria. It's all about a great team, and I believe we have them here. It is high honor to be chosen to serve as a minister in the Federal Executive Council of our beloved republic. With such high honor comes tremendous responsibility. In this moment of abundant promise and peril in equal measure, all of you who have been sworn in have been called to distinguish yourself. It is me who know you. And delegates this authority. But the greatest number of Nigerians are highly expectant of delivery and accountability and transparency.
Everybody knows what's been happening in that solid mineral sector of the economy. It's been frittered away. Nigeria has been shortchanged. We've been receiving the shorter end of the stick. There is going to be a critical departure from that norm. But I'm not going to reveal the strategies and tactics right now. We'll be unfolding that as we move ahead. But we are going to harness those resources for the benefit of our people, for the benefit of Nigeria, and in the interest, collective interest of all. And we are going to be involving the private sector, and there will be massive foreign direct investment into that sector. That is the only way to go.
Well, Dele Alake, the Minister for Solid Minerals. Well, we also spoke with other ministers in the course of the program. We'll bring you the chat we had with them. But again, let's look at the President's Cabinet and the daunting task ahead of them at a time when the country is faced with a plethora of issues. You had the President there. He knows them, perhaps, and that's why he's delegated them to go act on his behalf. Joining me live in the studio is Eze Chikamnayo. He's a lawyer and a former Commissioner for Information and Strategy in Abia State. Also, I have Marvin Yobana, who is a political analyst. Gentlemen, good to see you both, and thanks for your time. The President has spoken, and he said a lot of soundbite from the President. Serve Nigeria, not regions or states. And of course, he's also told them that a whole lot is expected of them. Let's start with you, Eze Chikamnayo. This is not the first time you've seen people come on the saddle, whether ministers or as commissioners. What exactly will be, listen to Dele Alake. He says that there are strategies that the government will employ. You know about strategy. You were former Commissioner for Information and Strategy. But again, before getting into strategies, for the everyday Nigerian, this is a time for us to start seeing action. And what aspect of our national life are we expected to see the first action from these 4 to 5 ministers?
Well, so let me first of all thank President Tinubu. I want to thank our dear President because he has done the needful in trying to painstakingly select experienced men and women that has capacity, that have commitment, to the common good, and above all, that have the experience to back up this assignment, because this is not time for experiment at all. This is time for experience, because Nigerians are in a hurry to see things happen. And the primary essence of government all over the world, especially now for us, is about security and welfare of our people. That's what the Constitution talks about. The reason for the existence of government is security and welfare of the people. And when these two things are properly aligned, prosperity follows. But when there is a problem, either in the area of security or in the area of welfare of the people, the center will not hold. So what President Tinubu has done is to bend backwards and critically examine from the team available to him the few people for now that will be able to drive change and a paradigm shift. And I think that's what I see in the ministerial list. I see men and women of experience, men and women of capacity, and men and women of commitment. How they pan out is a matrix, sort of. It's something that has to do with their capacity to adapt to the dynamics that they meet in their various ministries, and then make sure that their focus, their objective of ensuring immediate, because Nigerians are no longer ready for long stories, immediate change, positive change that will bring to pass the expectations of the moment. Now, in the area of security, let me say that we have a challenge as a nation. Insecurity has become a reality we live in. In Umunochi, where I come from, as we speak, this morning, a farmer, a lady who had gone to her farm with an 18-year-old daughter was kidnapped.
That's in Abia State.
In Abia State. And that is the same across the southeast. But it is more in the area where we have a high concentration of what we call the bandits. And the reason for that is because local governments are not working in Nigeria. Every security issue is local. The reason for that is because traditional rulers are not empowered. Every traditional ruler can pinpoint with exactitude the family, the clan, where any individual in his autonomous community comes from. So I want to urge President Tinubu, especially the Minister of Interior, to make local governments work, to make sure that traditional rulers are empowered. I want the Senate, the National Assembly, to make it a premium legislative agenda to ensure that traditional rulers are given constitutional roles that makes the people at the grassroots to take ownership of their security challenges. That will go a long way. Because each time we talk about making traditional rulers have a constitutional role, people think of it in terms of grandiose, No, it's about the fact that every security challenge is local. Like you said, my brother Dele, talked about strategies. Without strategy, everything you do is nothing. In Abia State, where I come from, like I said in the last time I was here at the program, we had a blueprint that involved making sure that intelligence gathering is not left just to the police and the army and all the people that are posted into the state, but intelligence is made an obvious responsibility of the people that are in the marketplace, that are in the drinking shops, that are in the corners of the different communities, such that even with a small mobile phone, if intelligence is properly managed, before any crime is committed, it has come to the knowledge of the people who should take responsibility for it. So security is key. Then welfare of the people.
No, I'll come back to welfare. Let's just pause at security. Let me bring in Marvin Yobana. Marvin, you've heard Eze Chikamnayo, and in all of that, he's a strong believer that the team is peopled by Nigerians that are ready to hit the ground running. And he's also excited to see that some key personalities will do the job. But he picked security, which is very key for him there. But I'll give you the liberty to tell us what should be the first ministry that you want to see quick action. And first, what's your sense of the make of the cabinet?
Well, first of all, like he said, I agreed with him that the president took time to choose the people he believes will be able to deliver. And he told them clearly that this should not be about self-serving. It should be about the country, not where you come from, not your religion, but definitely how Nigerians will have this renewed hope that he so talked about. And for me, he's mentioned security, which is a very challenging issue that this administration has inherited. But you look at the economy too, it's a very challenging task for the president because he came in at the point where Nigeria has the highest debt rate as we speak that has ever happened in this country before. And at the time where the Naira was plunging and a lot of things happened. We got to a stage in the past administration where Nigerians were buying Naira, using Naira to buy Naira. So we got that low. The president has tried to put one or two economic things on ground to see how we can rejuvenate this and see how, more especially looking at the areas of economy, power, and security, which is very critical for any economic growth in this country. For those persons he appointed, I would not be able to say that this person will be able to do this or that, except those persons we already know and who have antecedents or track records of delivering on their promises or where they've served before. Like you can look at some of these former governors, for instance. You look at River State, for instance, you see somebody like Yese Wike, who just finished as governor, and he was so tagged Mr. Project in Nigeria. So we understand that he's a no-nonsense character.
You heard him earlier today?
Yeah, I heard him.
His first speech to the people?
It was very clear and precise. He made it very clear and made it clear to his people that on Wednesday, he said Wednesday, he wants a briefing from the FCT administration. He wants to know exactly what is happening. And he talked about power. No, sorry, he talked about security. He talked about the way Abuja has degenerated, not as the first class city that should be competing with other cities across the world. And that is, he talked about the blueprint of the city and those who have encroached into green areas. He talked about a lot of things. He mentioned about sanitation. He mentioned about a lot of things. Traders on the streets and everywhere. I see him as somebody who is ready to walk, who is ready to hit the ground running. He said he doesn't care what you speak, your religion or your ethnicity, but what he wants is that everybody should put hand and let them work together. And that is what I expect from all the ministers. Because you see, we are in a very trying times in Nigeria. And Nigerians are suffering. And more especially with the removal of fuel subsidy, which is a good thing on one hand, but on the other hand, we have to feel the pain first before we make the gain. And we are struggling to see how we can balance all these things. So we need people with strong character, those who are willing, who are not self-serving, not those who want to come and enrich themselves. This is not the time for public officers to come and enrich themselves. No, we don't even have the funds. So, like he said, the area of security is very critical because if you talk of agriculture, or you talk about anything, without security, you can't get there. And right now we are facing issues of banditry, terrorism, those who want to leave the country in some parts of the east, and you have several other militancy in the Niger Delta and this oil theft, which is other things. Then you talk about other crimes like robbery, kidnapping, and all that. It's there. So I'd like what His Excellency Wike told the security chiefs that were with him. He said, look, I'll give you money to do the work. We'll provide the tools for you. But if you don't deliver, I'll tell Nigerians that I gave you money.
So time was, sorry to cut you, I'm still with you, Marvin. Time was when ministers or political appointees would say they were waiting to see the body language of the appointer, the president in this case. So for someone like Wike, he didn't wait to see what body language. He seemed to understood his job description.
Yeah,
But
because the president has given them a mandate. He gave them a mandate, a clear mandate. He said they should go and please Nigerians, not to serve themselves or where they come from. And you can see, I want to commend the president for some other thing he did, like the Niger Delta ministry. He brought somebody who is, people say Niger Delta is called Delta, Rivers, and Akwa Ibom, and these ones. They are the called Niger Delta, and they see it as a birthright. But he brought somebody from Edo State. So I think what the president is doing, look at the FCT. He brought somebody from the Niger Delta to be the minister here. So I think he's saying he believes in the unity of Nigeria. We are one Nigerians. Put the best persons, let them have the work. We are not going to create human beings. We are going to work with those persons we already have.
Put the best persons and let them do the work. I'll come back to you, Marvin. Apologies. Okay. I'll come back. And I want us to expatiate the Niger Delta development, because I stopped him where he was going into welfare, and listening to Marvin and some of the key concerns when he spoke about our economy and how best to help the everyday Nigerian. The talk of welfare should also come in for those that will be in charge. So, is it Chikamnayo, for welfare? I'm taking off from where he stopped earlier. How can the minister or the ministry in this, of the economy help the everyday Nigerian to ensure that the daily living is a little bit comfortable?
Well, it's good to build bridges. It's good to build skyscrapers. It's good to build beautiful cities. But most importantly, it's good to build human beings. Because at the end of it all the bridges, all the mansions, all the skyscrapers are meant for him, for me, and for you. We must create jobs. We must industrialize. We must create opportunities that will absorb our young people in a productive and very, very profitable way. Nigerians have seen even military governments build roads. We have seen all manner of infrastructure. But that person, that Nigerian, that citizen should become our focus at this moment. You see, people are suffering. Suleiman, people are suffering. And Nigerians are suffering. And we need the political will, which I believe, I'm convinced, that President Tinubu has shown so far, to aggregate all of these dynamics and channel it to how to make sure that the welfare of the average Nigerian person, the vulcanizer, the driver, the civil servant, the teacher, that man that is in the farm that may not have need to come to Abuja ever, we must find a way to ensure that whatever we are doing at this macrocosm trickle down to the microcosm. And how do you do that? Yeah. You do that with emphasis on small, medium enterprise development, SMEs. You see, the Abia model readily comes to mind. In Aba, for instance, we have over 1 million. In fact, when Okonjo-Iweala came with the World Bank, she was able to bring in, on record, over about 1.6 million SMEs in terms of people who are making shoes, people who are doing tailoring job, people who are doing jobs that require just skill to execute. And the SME sector holds the key. How did we do it? Each time I come here, I tell you about what we have done. It's because you cannot differentiate what has been from what will become. The SME sector in Abia State, under our own administration, from the experience I have, provided jobs for over 60% of the unemployed youths. All you need to do is to do a work to learn program wherein youths who have left school or people who could not go through the formal education system are able to acquire skills. If you have tailors, if you have garment makers, if you have shoemakers, if you have people that require little or no financial support to be able to sit back and take care of themselves and become self-reliant, you have an economy.
Because local industries must be revived, and that's very important here.
Yes, we used to have a lot of garment factories in Kaduna, in the north. We used to have a lot of industries that are, like Bata shoes. When you grew up, I'm sure you wore some Bata shoes, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Bata shoes. They were all made in Aba. And how do you do that? It's simple. Just leave all of this highfalutin language and go down to the basics. Pick the young people out of the street. Give them little or no incentive, but just organize them. And you see them, Nigerians are ingenious people. Nigerians are hardworking people. All that we need in Nigeria is the direction and the support from government to make our youth evolve to the greatest of their potential.
Well, direction, support, and of course, if there is already a working template, you don't need to recreate it. All you need is to work and ensure that template does work. Marvin, there was this hoopla about the disappearance of Niger Delta Ministry, and now that he came to, some are saying, oh, wait a minute, we have a listening president. But more important is to ensure that the Niger Delta Ministry, for once, must work. So what are the key concerns? Being someone familiar with that terrain and the ministry, what do you expect to see from the Niger Delta Ministry that will not make anyone forget the ministry?
Thank you very much. This is a very important question. Because you see, for a very long while now, we've been talking about development in the Niger Delta. In the Niger Delta see two things, two agencies, let me mention that way. One is the Niger Delta Development Commission, the other one is the Niger Delta Ministry. It was given to us by the Obasanjo administration, then the Yar'Adua administration. Then the other ones are just the security angle to it. We talked about amnesty for those who laid down arms, But we've not seen much from the Niger Delta Ministry since inception. First of all, they said they didn't have funds. The only project that was given to them at that time, during the Goodluck administration, was just that East-West Road. And the funding was very poor. We expected that the IOCs, for instance, because you see, we have a short stretch of road from, let's say, in Rivers, where you have from the One axis, where you have the refinery, you have the petrochemical plant, you have the seaports, you also have you have a lot of things going on around that area, and the federal government makes a lot of money from that short road. It's just less than 7 kilometers of road. You cannot believe it, that the past 12 years going, they've not been able to fix that short stretch of road.
12 years?
12 years running as I speak to you. And when the state government wants to do it, they say, look, it's a road, you can't touch it. We have a design. So it goes to the Federal Ministry of, Works, then it moves back to the NNPC. They say they have a special funding for it and all that, front and back. And that road, you find that it's an economic hub for this country. And they can't fix it. So I think that what this government can do with returning back the Niger Delta Ministry is to allow the Niger Delta Ministry to coordinate those development partners. For instance, I spoke with the management of one of those fertilizer companies in the Niger Delta. We met them when we were protesting why the road was not fixed. And they told us that clearly they made a proposal to the Federal Ministry of Works. Look, take this money from, deduct our taxes, take it from our tax, let us fix this road for you, and you take it over 5 years or so, take it from our taxes. Don't bring a dime. And the federal government refused. So you can imagine. That was why when the president did not mention the Niger Delta Ministry, the people in Niger Delta were agitated and they started making a lot of comments. And thank God that we have a listening president. And now that he has brought somebody who is there and he has told them clearly this is what we need to do, there needs to be a collaboration. The presidency too needs to help them to be able to get those in charge, like the NMPs who said they have the funds, get the IOCs who are operating there to make collaborative funds. They can contribute. It is part of their social responsibility. And if government does not have immediate cash to fix it, these IOCs can put money together and fix it, and later you take it from the tax. It's easy than going to borrow. So I think that the Niger Delta Ministry needs to check that, because that will help a lot. It will increase the revenue for the federal government, because once that short stretch of road is fixed, a lot of economic activity goes through there. You don't need to bloat the Lagos ports. You have a very
because the ministry needs to take charge, because I recall then when you all had that, we've seen series of protests. The East-West Road wasn't under the Works Ministry then. So now you're talking about collaboration with the IOCs. That's another one that the new minister can explore. So we'll come back and talk about security, especially around the Niger Delta. Chikamnayo started talking about security, and he touched on the southeast security. And but again, let's talk about works. Talking about the East-West Road, we should talk about works. And what also should work for us as works. The new man there is someone who's not new to the workings of that department, former governor of Ebonyi State. You must have been to Ebonyi State.
Not only have I been to Ebonyi State, the great man, distinguished Senator Dave Umahi, is personally known to me. He is an engineer, he is experienced, he's hardworking, and he's committed. And he has a testimonial to show.
So what do we expect to see?
What we expect is exactly, because that's why I said Senator Dave Umahi has a testimonial. If you go to Ebonyi State, you see the great work he has done, not just the bridges, not just the flyovers, but the empirical, attention he paid to details in trying to recreate Ebonyi State, which is what we did in Aba through Governor Keziba. So let me tell you something. If you don't keep the youths busy, the youths of Nigeria, the devil will keep them busy. Everything we want to do in Nigeria, and I want to plead with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, must be youth-centered. The issue of building roads is something that, with Senator Dave Umahi, we can take it for granted that some of the most intractable roads must be built. And please, may I use this opportunity to plead with him and President Tinubu to ensure that the Aba-Port Harcourt Expressway, which is less than 15 kilometers, less than 30 minutes drive, but as I speak to you, you can move from Aba to Port Harcourt without spending 5 hours. Craters have taken over. We are not talking of boreholes, craters, Aba to Port Harcourt. And it's taken over 16 years. Over 16 years, that's ridiculous, but that's what we have. We must have a government that looks at the nucleus, the nerve centers of development. Between Aba and Port Harcourt is a lot of possibilities. Aba represents the ingenuity of Nigeria. Aba represents the promise of Nigeria. Aba represents what the average Nigerian youth is capable of doing. And Port Harcourt represents the market. And as young people, I was talking to one of our colleagues before I came into the studio, and he told me how he did all of his education in the university just by selling shirts made in Aba, in Lagos. And personally, I used to take, clothes from Aba through, Mivatin Avenue, night bus, you are in Balogu Market, and you sell babies, all of that, and then you come back. And Aba is a place where every single room is an industry. Tell me the reason why Aba to Port Harcourt, Aba to Ikot-Ebene Road, none of them is up to 20 kilometers, and they have remained very, very miserably bad over the years. It's lack of prioritization. So when we want to deal with development, we must make sure that development comes with an idea of where do we have productivity? Where do we have an activity that can become a catalyst to other activities across the nation? People of Aba, people of Port Harcourt, people of Ikot-Ebene should be able to have roads. And what that does is that if Of course, he talked about Dave Umahi. He's from the southeast, and we expect, the minimum we expect is that from Dave Umahi, all of the southeastern roads, especially the ones that connect from Aba to Port Harcourt, from Aba to Ikote, and all of the places where productivity is done must be given.
May I remind you, the president has already told you know the president said don't regionalize it. He mustn't go home and say he's going to horse that first to fix it.
If he doesn't,
I get the picture.
I agree with the president 100%.
I get the picture.
But you see, what I'm saying is that if you are moving from Kaduna to Abuja, or
so that we can
if you are
close,
moving from Abuja
Marvin.
to Jos, you are still talking about the same thing. But I'm just giving an example with what is from the known to the unknown. Please, the emphasis should be not roads that lead to houses, but roads that lead to productive centers.
I think that's the crux. Roads that lead to productive centers and that lead to productive centers. Marvin, listening to him, some of the key concerns will be our industries, our daily productive living, farms. The Niger Delta again comes to mind. Back in the day, rubber plantation, fishery, so many things that pollution and devastation has actually wiped out. So how can we bring about such industry, to the Niger Delta, to the northern part, to his glorious Aba? Because I see his eyes closed when he speaks about. Now let's talk about how we can revamp our industries.
Yeah, definitely. These things are interwoven. You have security on one hand, you have poor maintenance of our roads, you have poor funding of SMEs.
Exactly.
And you have also government not paying attention to food security. It's very key. These things, if you don't treat them as you don't treat them together, you cannot work. Because, for instance, if we say we have high costs of food coming from, say, Benue, and it is difficult for the farmer to bring his products from Benue to Abuja, he goes through insecurity and all that, it becomes more expensive by the time he gets to Abuja. Now, the rails, which we thought was a safe haven, turned out in the past administration not to be a safe haven because simple technology could not be put to work to be able to check this. So these things are interwoven. You mentioned the Niger Delta, which is very key. We have veritable land and the oceans, the rivers, streams, and all that. Very rich flora and all those things we have there. And we are predominantly farmers and fishermen in that area, apart from the oil thing that goes on. But the enabling environment for them to apply this God-given trade is very difficult because, first of all, these fishermen needs the essential things they need to go and compete with those people who come in with trawlers.
Yeah.
People come in with trawlers. Foreign vessels, you find them in the Niger Delta creeks. If you go to Oyorokoto is in River State, you see foreign trawlers, Indian trawlers, Chinese trawlers walking there. And where they get all these things, they take them away. But the local farmers will be struggling with net, one small net and all that, with their canoe. So I think that it's time for government to look, the Minister for Agriculture should look into that. And I think that they should work collaboratively because if the Minister for Works works with the Minister for Agriculture, he identifies the areas where they have food heavens, let's just say food baskets, whatever. It's okay, let us make this road motorable. It works with the security agents. Let us make this route secured for the farmers. Let us provide the enabling environment for small SMEs to get these small handouts, small funds that will help them get the necessary tools or the siblings they need for planting and all that. It will help a lot. That will go a long way to reduce crime. Because like the Niger Delta, for instance, the only farming most of our boys know now is how to harvest crude oil. That's the farming they do because that's the one is realistic because wherever they harvest it, in a keg, the small keg of 20 liters or 30 liters, they definitely find somebody who's using a generator who wants to buy. Somebody who has a small hotel who wants to fuel his gen because there's no electricity. Thank God that the president has gone a little bit further to say, look, you can generate your own power. up to 1 kilowatt without paying any taxes or whatever. But if you generate more than that, you need an approval and you need a license. You see, this has created alternative means of energy for us. And that is one of those renewable energies that is the in thing today. We need to look into that. So it comes together, it brings in the Ministry of Power and Energy. You know, I'm happy that he also separated the Ministry of Petroleum, that you have petroleum and you have gas.
Yeah.
So you now have to concentrate purely, because we waste a lot of gas in Nigeria. I can tell you, Ogoni alone, we have 220 oil wells, 16 fuel stations, and 9 oil fields. It is left desolate. Nobody's taking one drop of oil from there. Then the other ones, the other part of River State, they are just flaying the gas. If you go to Omok, wasting this gas. And this gas can provide renewable energies for us. It can help with the gas turbine. So we are a lot of wastage is going on. So what this government should work is to ensure that they see how they can get this waste, curtail the waste, and see how we can regenerate these things into productive ventures. And that is the only way we can live and get on. Another thing that is very critical I wanted to mention is because in the Niger Delta, we have a lot of people who have the skills for refining. Why can't we put them together as models in a community? We put together one model, we get all these people together, it becomes a model, and they now supply direct to the mainstream. You give them the crude, little crude that you want to give them, allocate to them, they refine it under good supervision, under a proper...
Is that the same with the modular refinery?
Yes, that's what, that's what I'm going to. So the government should also encourage that in the Niger Delta. Then, in these other stretches we are talking about, the issue of security is critical, because without security, the farmers cannot do nothing.
And as if we can do this in 30 seconds, listening to what he says collaboration is key, and more than 1, 2, 3 ministries can also come together and ensure that we get the good of the government of today.
Yeah, power is key. Without power, there will be no manufacturing. And without manufacturing, there will be no opportunities for employment. We need to get power right. We need to get manufacturing right, but we must focus on youth empowerment. And above all, the 5 billion naira that was said to have been given to states, you know, there's a general deficit of trust from Nigerians to the government. And when this 5 billion naira was said to have been given out, a lot of people were skeptical. Why don't we make it project specific and say 5 billion naira for SME development? 5 billion naira to channel them to only activities that ensure that the youths are kept busy.
Well, I think it's a fine place for us to leave it. We really can't exhaust everything, but I think we've started this conversation. We're hoping that the ministers and the government and everyone in charge should pick up something from this conversation. Marvin Yobana is a Chikamnayo. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.